Shortland Street, still in second place. It just can't beat the other street of Coronation. Shortland Street again at second place. Did get to first place at the beginning of the year in January, if anybody remembers, or if anybody cares about Shortland Street, because it is a New Zealand soap opera. Very obscure, I'm sure, unless there's New Zealanders watching this. Shout out to New Zealand, I guess. But we'll talk about the stories. I still feel like Shortland Street is arguably the most entertaining soap opera right now. But there's still some writing woes, and it's still, most of the stories move so fast that it gets on my nerves. But then we have stories moving way too slow, and we're going to talk about that first. It is the Hamish story, where Hamish is the dirty cop who's like handcuffed to the gang in town, the main dangerous gang. That's been the main story. And my biggest issue is that Jack just continues to look so dumb in this story. They have Jack looking like a fool. This is the man that was the dirty cop that killed his brother, and Jack just can't figure it out. Now, we at least have Esther onto him, who was Curtis's wife. But Hamish continues to just get deeper and deeper in this scheme. He already killed... Well, the main detective was onto him as well. And Hamish was going to try to, get her to maybe join the gang, to get her to back off, to turn dirty like he is. So this was his way of trying to deal with her, but the head of the gang wasn't having it and killed her anyway. So this was him getting deeper, or at least the main gang member shot her, and then Hamish had to finish the job in the hospital in Shortland Street to kill her. But then eventually we get to a point where Hamish has to kill the main boss to try and get him to back off of Jack. So maybe Hamish really does have feelings for Jack, but I still think Jack looks like a damn fool in this story. So we're at that point now where Hamish has killed the head of the gang. But he needs to make sure that the rest of the gang doesn't find out that he did it, or they're all going to be coming for him and probably for Jack. So it's just been a very long story. This has been happening the entire year so far, where most of these stories move so fast. I want this one to move a little faster. It's a good story, but I hate stories that ruin characters, and I feel like Jack is being ruined by this story. So I really hope this story comes to an end in April, because I don't know how much longer I got in me with Jack just looking dumb. But, we do have Esther onto Hamish, at least. Other stories, we had Samira into Marty. This is one of those quick stories. Dawn was jealous because, Dawn and Marty have this friendship. They've also been testing Esther and Marty together as well. But this romance is short-lived, like most of Samira's romances seem to be. Because she gets a job out of town and she's going to leave. And at first Marty agrees to go with her, but then he doesn't. So that put a quick end to that. A bit of a deeper story has been TK, his friend, dying from cancer. Then TK finds out he has cancer as well. So that's been a pretty heavy story, one of their heavier stories. They were trying to keep it from Matilda, TK's daughter, but eventually had to tell her as well. And speaking of Matilda, she's kind of been involved with Wilder, who was Mauve's son, and Wilder's been acting out. We've seen him on drugs. We've seen him break into Damo's computer at the hospital. But the other big story that's been happening the past 2 months has been the blackmail of Damo and the blackmail of the hospital, trying to get money out of the hospital. And Damo ends up losing all his money to the hacker because of a firewall that Wilder put down while breaking into Damo's computer at the hospital. So Wilder's getting blamed for possibly being the main hacker. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's how March ended. I haven't watched any episodes from April yet as I'm recording this. Now, as entertaining as the show is, and most of the stories are still good, even though I'm getting sick of the Hamish story. My biggest issue with Shortland Street is Desi and Damo and their whole relationship, because they just are really over the top. Like, I get that, I guess they're supposed to be comedy relief, but it's just dumb. And they have these two characters looking so immature at their big age, and I just don't think it's working at this point. They had because of course Damo lost all this money, and Desi's going to be upset about it, and they can't get married, even though they end up getting married anyway. But Desi was having her doubts and even went to see her ex. I don't know. I just don't enjoy these two. I don't find them entertaining. I find them fast forward material, and they are a big reason why that Shortland Street could not pass Coronation Street for the month of March, because they got a lot of screen time towards the end of the month, and I just wasn't happy about it. The first half of Shortland Street was good because they focused more on their more exciting stories, but the second half of March focused on Damo and Desi a little too much for my liking. And then at their wedding, we have Madonna, who's been jealous of Viliami getting close to Vivian out of nowhere, because that's what happens a lot on this show, because everything moves so fast that Vivian and Viliami get close pretty much out of nowhere, just to be a device and to cause trouble for Madonna and Viliami. Like usual, there's always someone causing trouble for these two. But Viliami ends up proposing to Madonna at Desi and Damo's wedding. She says yes, but still seems to have some jealousy issues with Viv. So I guess to sum up Shortland Street for March it is an entertaining soap opera, and sometimes exciting, but a lot of the stories are getting played out, like Viliami and Madonna, and like this Hamish story, which is starting to make the character of Jack look too bad, in my opinion. And then there's other stories that just move too fast, like all of Samira's relationships. But I still think there's enough to make it number 2 in my rankings because of how entertaining Shortland Street is.